Hey everyone, I am back out on my front deck garden for another beautiful weather day, although it's a little bit windy, more so up here than it is down at ground level. But today what I'm going to do is refresh my potted perennials. So I already showed you in a different video how I refresh the potting soil that I empty out of my pots at the end of the garden season. I'll link that down below in case you missed it. What I'm doing today is refreshing the soil in my potted plants that are staying in those pots. So I don't ever, unless I'm upsizing a plant, I don't ever take it out of the pot completely and replace all the soil. And the plants I'm going to show you today are in the largest size pot that they are going to be in. So either they live happily in the pots that I give them, or they're getting kicked out of the garden. And for most of these plants, I think they've been here again since like 2020, 2021, and they've been doing great with this method. So I'm going to continue to do it until it ever stops working. So let me take you around. I'll show you which plants I'm going to refresh today, and then I'll show you the process that I do. I'm going to start with this raspberry bush, which I just pruned with you in another video. And then I have my other raspberry bush right there. I'll probably do this with my strawberries, although I might wait because I like to make sure my plants are still alive before I use like compost and fertilizer on them. And let's see if we see any new growth. Maybe I'll clean this up today too. I don't know if I really see any new growth here yet, so I might hold off on that one. I'm definitely going to refresh this raspberry. Definitely going to refresh this rhubarb because you can see how much it's already growing. And then this is another one I'm not sure of. So this is my second rhubarb and it hasn't sprouted yet, which I know every plant is different, but when one plant of the exact same variety has already sprouted and the other hasn't, then I get a little bit nervous. So I'm probably not going to do anything to that. And I'm just working with my pots today. I'll do the rose bush as well. I'm not doing anything with my raised beds yet because I don't typically refresh those until I'm ready to plant out my warm season annuals, and that will, well, it's normally in May. We'll see if it's a little bit earlier this year. Oh, I did want to give you an update. I do have some pea sprouts happening here, so those should be growing up my sunflower stalks from last year soon. I also have all these pansies coming back that I planted in the fall, so that's really exciting. Oh, and look what the pigeons have left for me on the garden wall. I don't have my hose hooked up yet to wash that away. So going back to the rhubarb for a second. So like I said, I am gonna refresh the one pot. I'd mentioned in another video that I don't know if I'm gonna keep both because I don't know if I love it enough for the space that it takes up. So I'm holding off for now, but what I think I'm gonna do is get rid of one of the two rhubarb plants that I have and keep the other one. So I'm at least gonna have one for sure. We'll see if I can't bring myself to remove it and have two, but if it doesn't come up anyway, then that kind of solves the problem for me. But both the rhubarbs I planted from seed, I believe it was 2020 or 2021 at the latest. So I'll either have one or I'll have two this year, but I will let you know what I choose to do with that. So now I'm gonna gather up everything I need. We'll refresh all of these pots, and then that's the only garden task I have for today, so I can enjoy the weather for the rest of the afternoon. So I only use two things really to refresh my potting soil. I might add in other things if I feel like it, but for most of my plants, I'm just gonna add in a granular fertilizer and then some compost. Now, in an ideal world, I would have Berrytone, but I don't. So when I don't have a fertilizer that's specifically made for the plant, in this case, this is my raspberry bush, I just use all-purpose plant tone. I think the Berrytone is 4:3:4 NPK ratio. This is 5:3:3. Should be good enough. This is what I've used because I've never had Berrytone. Maybe I should get a bag. I don't know, we'll see. But plant tone is usually what I'm using for this step. And then I will also top dress with compost. And even though I'm doing both of these in the spring, I will still add compost throughout the season as I have it. Raspberries, I typically fertilize those once in the spring, and then as the season continues, if there seems to be some sort of nutrient deficiency, I'll add a liquid fertilizer to it, but it doesn't get fertilized as often as like my annual flowers, for example, or my tomato bushes. So let's go ahead, I'll take you in up close and I will show you how to refresh the soil. Now, the first thing I do, if I can, if the root ball isn't too large, is to go ahead and just scrape a little bit of the soil off the top. And I'm just doing this to make room to add in the compost. So it's not like I'm taking a bunch out. I'm being gentle here so I don't disturb the plant too much. And I'm using my hands-on gloves, again, not necessarily because I'm working with a plant with thorns, although that is helpful, but more so because they have these little, I don't know what you call these little nubs on them that make it a little bit easier to dig in here. All right, I think that's good. So now what I'm going to do is sprinkle on the granular fertilizer. So there should be, hopefully, instructions on how much to apply. So this one says for potted plants, for established potted plants, you want 1 teaspoon for every 3 inches of pot diameter. This, I believe, is 16. I think my other one is 18. So we'll do somewhere just over 5 teaspoons, and I'm going to do it around the outer edge of this container. Typically, when you have a plant in the ground, the instructions will say to do around the drip line or where the branches of the plant kind of extend to. But here, the drip line is going to be around the edge of the pot. And I just estimate teaspoons, just kind of eyeball. It's not like I'm taking out a teaspoon to actually measure. But I always just kind of drop it in there and then rake it into the soil with my fingers. And I can always add more if I need to, so I always err on the side of a little bit less than too much. So now we're good there. Next, I'm just going to add in the compost, and I'm going to put on both gloves for this. Usually I'm just adding in about an inch layer right on the top. And you can also water it in immediately after, but we are supposed to get some rain tomorrow. So I'm not going to worry about watering it in. 1, because I don't have my hoses set up yet. But 2, because Mother Nature is going to take care of that for me. All right, I think this one's good. So I'm going to go put it back, and then we will do the last, 1, 2, 3 potted plants that I know aren't dead. I'm doing the exact same thing then with the rhubarb. Just taking a little bit of the old soil off the top. And again, I'm just doing this to make room for the compost because you don't want the dirt in your pot to go right up to the lip, because then when you try to water, the water is going to spill over the sides. So you want to leave at least an inch at the top of the pot for when you're watering. All right, that's good. I think this one's also 16 inches. Yeah, it looks the same size. So I'll do the same, about 5 teaspoons. I would recommend always wearing gloves of any type when you're working with fertilizers or anything that your hands are going to touch. There's also some powder in this, so you could throw on a mask if you wanted to, but I never do that. So plant tone is in there. I'm just going to scratch it in. And you know what? Let's just do the same step with this raspberry bush while we're over here. And yes, I am just tossing this dirt into one of my 30-gallon grow bags. I will worry about that when I clean it out. There's nothing that's going to be planted in there until my tomatoes and zinnias are ready to go outside, and that won't be until May. Again, weather dependent, but typically around mid-May. All right, and then plant tone. Again, this is going around the outer edge of the container and then just mixing that in. And then last step is compost. Okay, these two are done. I'm going to do my rose bush now, and I actually do have some rose fertilizer spikes. So I'm going to go grab that. So what I have for roses are these, is it Job's? I think it's Job's fertilizer plant spikes. And these are NPK 9-12-9. I do have a whole video talking about fertilizers, NPK ratios. I'll link that down below. But this one says for plant diameter in feet, it's 2 feet diameter, 2 spikes, 3 to 4 feet, 3, 5 to 6, 4. This is about 2 feet, so I'm going to do 2 spikes, and again, just at the edges of the container. So I'm going to do one on basically each side across from each other. There's actually only 2 spikes left, so I need to get some more, but all you do, this is what they look like, and they just get shoved down into the pot. So I'm going to push one at the edge over here, and then the other one right across from it. And spring is when you want to be fertilizing your perennials. Usually I'm not doing it again this early, but because things are so far along. Oh, and I should mention with this rose bush, this was in the garage, so it started budding up sooner than it would have outside, but I've also killed roses before by leaving them outside, so it has to be stored in the garage. So this is much further along than it should be. So just to be safe, I have been moving it inside at night when the temperatures get usually below 40 degrees, and that's worked for it. So it is a little bit extra work, but I was a little bit impatient and brought it out of the garage too soon, so that's my own fault. So this one does need protection, but like my raspberries, rhubarb, those stay out over the winter and they've been completely fine. So this one is, again, still coming in and out. Everything else is just left outside. And since it's going to rain tomorrow, no need to water. So that's it. That's all I do to refresh my perennials. Like I said, I will add compost throughout the season. I might add some liquid fertilizer if necessary, but it really is just that simple. And I will say, one thing that I've learned through gardening is that a lot of people have a lot of rules. Like I've seen people say, you have to empty out your pots every 2 years minimum. Well, it's been 4 years now. Yeah, 4 years, and I've never emptied out those pots, and my perennials continue to grow fine. So just try what you want in your garden. Again, I could not realistically garden if I had to empty out all of my containers every 2 years. It just would not be possible without a lot of effort and probably a lot of money as well. So this is what's worked for me. So try out things in your garden, see if they work. If they work, keep doing them. If they don't work, try something different. And that's definitely the best advice I've had, because there's been so many things that I was told wouldn't work and they've worked for me. So I would be missing out on that if I just listened to what someone said instead of actually trying it myself. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions down below, and I will see you in the next video. I'm gonna go enjoy this weather now.